This might be the bluest build in Diablo 2. It's definitely getting cold in cold plains with this look. Very nice looking. Very well then, let's get into the gameplay and the introduction of the Frostmade Bow Amazon build. So, I want to start off by saying that in the little introduction there, I was actually using Tyrael's Might. You can use that weapon if you really want a nice blue looking and also just get a chance to actually utilize the armor for once. But for GMB, Faith, or GMB, I'm so used to Faith, GMB Ice Moonward, this is the best setup using Chains of Honor. But yeah, let's get into some gameplay here. So right off the bat you will notice that I'm actually doing AoE, and that is because Freezing Arrow has splash damage. The radius is 3.3 yards, which is not a lot, but it's enough, you know. You're really doing consistent AoE. I wouldn't say it's AoE like multiple shot arrow or whatever, but it's definitely better than strafe. Another thing is also that you actually able to hit everything in the game except for maybe those crazy few immunities that are both physical and cold. So there's nothing that's really gonna stop you from ever just plowing down mobs. Even on bow Hell Player 1 I found the damage is actually very high, especially the single target. The freezing arrow is actually surprising good amount of damage. But yeah, this is just an elite pack. Boom! I just blew it up. It's surprising high amount damage. Some weakness, well, it's a bow Amazon, so it's always gonna be a bit weak, especially also cause the survival is just not that high. Another thing is also, it's not gonna be able to do 8 players hell or whatever. I really don't think it's gonna be able to do that, but we can of course test it out and see for it later, but I'm gonna call it here, that's probably the ceiling. But yeah, I'm actually very surprised with the killing power. I have never really done a bow Amazon with Frost before, so seeing it in action like this is actually a surprise to me. Because I'm more of a multiple shot arrow bow Amazon type of guy. I just like spraying those arrows, but this is actually pretty fun. And I think that's the main thing. It's kind of like a sorceress that uses glacial spike skill, if you know that one. Just that it's an Amazon, and then we also have a few other things such as strafe, which is probably only good for killing physical immunes. Like you can see, strafe is okay, but yeah, it's just kind of weird, and it's not better than just spamming freezing arrow. However, there are a lot of cold immunes in the game, and for one example, if you're gonna run chaos runs for this build, which a lot of bow Amazon do at least, those sorcerers or whatever that cast curses on you or whatever, those are always cold immune, so having strafe for killing cold immunes is actually very useful, I found. But yeah, I think for the little introduction out here, so let's move on. Okay, so to start with, I just want to have you to look at this ice rune word. It's not a very common rune word that anyone uses, so it's kind of like a rare opportunity to even make it work now in a build. Just look at all these stats here, it's absolutely insane to look at. Blizzard when level up, 22 Frost Nova on striking, Holy Freeze all level 18, free to crossbow and skills as the maximum roll, 20% increased attack speed, it rolls up to 220% enhanced damage, ignore target's defense. Not really quite sure how that works nowadays, but yeah, we don't really need the attack speed anyways, the attack rating anyways. More on that later. 30% cold skill damage, 7% life leads, minus 20 enemy cold resistance, 20 deadly strike. this movement just gives so many cool stats, so I'm really happy to see that. It's kind of like Death Moonward or something that really has some cool stats and no filler stats almost. So yeah, I'm pretty excited just to look at that one. So let's cover the stats first, just get that out of the way. It's actually very simple. Enough strength just to wear your monarchs and switch, or you could maybe even go with less strength if you don't really want to wear one. Dexterity, just put enough points till you kind of feel comfortable with your strafe attack rating. Now you're not going to be using strafe a lot, So in my case, I wanted at least 6,000. I thought that was a decent number. If you can get up to 10,000 attack rating or strafe, that's nice, but it's not really mandatory, because you're gonna get so much attack rating easily just from freezing arrow. I always say that 10,000 attack rating on any builds, any class, that's plenty. So yeah, just aim for these sort of numbers here. And then vitality, I wanted at least 1,000 health unbuffed without call arms, and I think that's plenty, because with call arms I'm at like 1.7k or something. And then the remaining points actually went into mana or energy. I know this is a weird choice, but I just didn't really know what else to spend it on, and I don't think I need that much more vitality. I mean, if you're gonna be hit as an Amazon, you're doing it wrong anyways. Plus, I got all this freezing and survival going on. Both the Holy Freeze aura and all those sort of things. I am definitely somewhat tanky on this build here, so I felt like just getting more mana just because it also makes the gameplay a bit more easy and fun. But yeah, with that, let's move on to some standard things here. Defense, yeah, you're gonna get a bit of defense from your Archon Plate or whatever base you choose. However, Tyrael's Might, if you end up using such one, does have a little more defense, so that's always something to consider. And then resistance. On most Amazon builds, you're just not gonna be able to cap this, but more on that later. We can definitely find some ways to cap it. Now let's move on to skills. It's very simple, this one. Max cold arrow for synergy damage to freezing arrow, 1 point into ice arrow. I'm actually not even sure if you can ever use ice arrow for anything. Don't think it's very good. It does freeze for a long time, I believe, but that's about it. So yeah, you can choose to get points into ice arrow, but it's just not really worth it. So 1 point into it, and that's plenty. And then we max strafe, just because what else can we spend the points on? That's pretty much my argument there. But yeah, strafe doesn't get that much better just because you put a lot of points into it, but it's still a good way to spend skills. Obviously nothing into javelin and spear skills. And then here for passive and magic, I max penetrate just to get that strafe attack rating up. If you don't feel like you want to have a good hitting strafe attack rating, you would honestly just not even put points into penetrate. That's not even needed. And the remaining of those points could either be pairs if you wanna, you're gonna be using razor tail anyways. I don't even think that's, maybe just critical strike, or if you like to put points into avoid, dodge, and evade. Those are also ways that you can spend your skills on. Or you could even go as far as getting a level 27 Valkyrie. That's a way to do it as well if you really like a strong Valkyrie. Like, the build is very open and there's a lot of ways that you could experiment with it. Also, just a little note, my call arms gives me +3 skills, so I always try to remember to buff my Valkyrie when I'm also doing my battle orders. Just wanted to mention that. So yeah, that's just a little min-maxing thing there you can experiment around with if you care about such things. So let's also talk a bit about conviction aura, attack rating, etc. and the mercenary. Endurance Resades, E, Fortitude, and Affinity. Very standard setup, but I just really like this one, especially with the Cryptic Axe. That's a cool base for me. But as most of you know, Conviction Aura also reduces the defense of mobs, thus you don't need attack rating at all really. But like sometimes the mercenary is out of range, I mean you're running around really fast, the mercenary is like behind, maybe it's dead, whatever. There are times where the conviction aura is just not always gonna be up, and that's where the penetrate skills come in to be sort of handy. But yeah, if you feel like the conviction aura is plenty, you could just never have any points into penetrate or care about attack rating at all, ever, period. So yeah, that's kinda up to yourself how you wanna see your mercenary. It's very open, that's for sure. But let's move on to the gear. Some nice little crafted gloves here. These are just examples of gloves that you could aim for. Dual leech gloves with knockback, increased attack speed, and +2 bow and crossbow. These skills here would be the GG roll. If you can't get dual leech on gloves and just get something with strength, dexterity, and knockback, that's fine as well. hell, you could even go without knockback if it's just for PVM and whatnot. But yeah, these stats, if you can get gloves like these are definitely ideal. And especially the increased attack speed has to be on the gloves. The Ravenfrost ring, and then a nice little dual leech ring again with a lot of mana, because again we're gonna be using quite a bit of mana, and I in general just like having mana on an Amazon for both. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, try to just get a dual leech ring for the most part. Then some Razor Tail for Pierce. Actually I quite like Razor Tail as well. It has just some overall decent stats for Amazon without considering the pairs. But with the pairs it becomes the best build in the game for sure. And then some example boots here of what you can kinda aim for. It would be nice if you could get, you know, a high amount of faster hit recovery on the boots, 20%, because it does help a bit on the survival. So you can maybe not use faster hit recovery, small charms, or whatever in your inventory. But yeah, some 30, 20 tri-res, whatever boots would be pretty sweet. But yeah, just try to get whatever tri-res boots that you can get. Even something with like maybe not even resistance on, but then some replenish life, mana, dexterity, strength, whatever. Just shop around, because I don't think there's any unique or neat boots or whatever that are really good for this build. And Elders of course is always good, Sandstorm Drake as well, but for the most part you want something a little more exotic than those two. So let's take the amulet here, Highlights Wrath. You really just want this one for the deadly strike. Plus, you know, that increased attack speed. There's really nothing more to it. However, I will say that plus skillers are actually pretty good on this build, so that's always a thing to keep in mind. And then Chains of Honor. Now, yeah, actually think I can also just quickly mention that of course we're using Nightwing's Veil. In this case it's a 20% cold damage, which is the maximum roll, and then I suck it with a 5/5 facet. But let's just cover this armor debate here. It's all about what base you use. If you have a grained matriarch bow, not a matriarch but a matriarchal, whatever it's pronounced, then you have a higher increased attack speed. You know, you're gonna hit targets easier with less attack speed. But with a GMB you're gonna hit, yes, slower, you're also gonna need more attack speed, but you're gonna hit harder, and that's kinda why I like this setup over the Matriarch. And also have a, you know, a link in the description below and whatnot that goes into a little more detail about this debate here. But if you really like Tyrael's Smite and you want to make it work on this build, also just because it fits it, you know, it's a blue build, frost build, etc., you should use a Tyrael's Smite just like this one with a 15% increased attack speed, 15% resistance dual. Or if you don't need the attack speed for whatever reason, you can also just go with a 5/5 facet Tyrael's Smite. But yeah, it's just not better. I can't recommend it, but god, it's pretty cool. Also, another thing you can do is use an armor like this one. You know, if you really just want to maximize your cold damage for whatever reason, this is also an option. Hell, you could even get some 24% faster hit recovery roll instead of life. That is also a good option. But yeah. Oh, I could also probably mention that you should probably try to aim for something like this one. Like the gold plate look. It looks pretty fun. Full plate mail even whatnot. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. Oh yeah, you could of course always consider something like Laying of Hands, Cat's Eye Amulets that highlights Wrath, especially if you're putting a lot of points into a critical strike for whatever reason, you don't really need the critical strike it then gives. Atmoscara for physical immunity, some sort of weird scenario, but it doesn't really matter since you have Strafe anyways, or Freezing Arrow, whatever. And there's also, you know, you could go without a Ravenfrost ring, but I just really like the Ravenfrost ring. It gives a lot of cold damage, which is very important. I will talk about that in just a bit. Then it also gives, you know, cannot be frozen, cold absorb mana. It's just very good. But yeah, also I forgot to mention Silkweave root sacks. These are actually a legit option, but just look at this shit. You only get like 50 more mana or whatever. It's almost nothing compared to, or 5 more mana, sorry, 5 more mana than mana boots like this one with 44 mana. That increased maximum mana by 10% sounds like a lot, but it just isn't, and that's kind of the sad truth. But yeah, 5 mana for each kill is okay, but it's kind of useless anyways. Anywho, I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, I also have to mention that some of the items are a bit modded, a bit weird, but yeah, this is just a quick area to fix. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the gear then. So let's give it a go on Players 8 Hell difficulty. I am definitely hyped to kind of just see the freezing going on, you know, there's a lot of crowd control actually, which I think is gonna benefit me when I'm not able to really kill them up that fast. But let's see about it. Okay, good pack down here to start. Yeah, as you can see, they're just frozen, they're never gonna get close to me. It's absolutely fun to just look at that. And they just, oh my god, they keep being frozen forever. It's so good to look at. Like even cold immunes, you know, these grotesque, some of them spawn the cold immune. It's no problem. Oh, let's see, yeah, the strafe damage here. Yeah, as you can see, the strafe is just kind of all over the screen. It doesn't want to focus on one target or whatever. But I am able to kill cold immunes. That even has a bit of mana burn going on and whatever. But I'm also leeching pretty well, as you can see the health is not dropping that much. However, mana burn is definitely a bad thing. But yeah, you can quickly see now the mana leech going on now, my mana globe is going up and down there. Okay, it's nearly dead. It's gonna take a while to get it down, but again, this is also the second worst roll that I could probably get, except for physical immune and cold. This is gonna take a while. Let's try to do, yeah, I mean, okay. God, I hate to say this, but I don't even think Strafe is probably okay for cold immunes on one player health, but the problem with Strafe is it just fires all over the screen. It doesn't target one target at a time, and then it just makes that single one really slow to kill. Of course, if they're bounced up like this, maybe Strafe is a little bit better than freezing health, but for the most part, I don't really like Strafe. But yeah, let's just see this dude here, the grotesque one, or the strangler you. Look at the damage when I'm like 5-shotting them. This is really good amount of damage, considering again it is 8 player. I also knew that this would be the ceiling, but I am pretty happy to see that I'm even able to just go in there and do some things with it. Now I'm almost getting stuck. Let's see strafe here. Look at the grotesque now, it's actually taking some decent damage. Up at the north corner there. Yeah, it is dying pretty decent fast to strafe. Okay, so now that we are back on Players 8 Hell difficulty, let's see what it can do in a little more relaxed atmosphere. What can I say to kind of round it up? It's kind of an expensive build, you need a few specific items, and I haven't seen many selling an Ice Rune GMB for a while, at least in Europe non-leather. I don't know if they create it on leather or whatever, but it's definitely not an easy weapon to get, but the same thing could be said for Faith. But yeah, overall the items are a little bit expensive to get, but I always found that you get very little value out of your Amazon builds, or bow Amazon builds even. These are some of the most expensive builds to build for your value of what you get out of it, because like they're not really strong for what you have to pay to really min-max the damage. I've seen that time and time and again on my own live server builds, so yeah. But yeah, it's actually a lot of fun. I like the way that it, you know, it just freezes everything. Another thing is also that it's really flashy. You know, the proc from Ice Rune with the Frost Nova one, it's actually kind of fun to just look at when it happens in like a few rows in the, yeah, like this one, boom. Just as it explodes, it procs the Frost Nova. It looks kind of flashy and fun. So like if you're tired of multiple shot arrow, you know, just spraying those arrows all the time, this might be an option for you really. I don't know if I would recommend it considering also the cost, but if you were set on making a bow Amazon and you knew you were able to get, you know, the really good items, you should probably consider this one. Yeah. Let's try to do a bit of strafe up here as well, just to kind of show the damage from that. Oh yeah, there's no mobs now. Let's try to do this little demon out here. See how fast it will die. Yeah, it almost killed the mobs nearby. I just don't like strafe. It's too bad that it's sort of just an auto attack. However, it's very relaxed. You should just hold down your mouse button and then you don't have to aim. Pretty much don't even have to aim or anything. So that's a pretty lazy ways man to play, I suppose, which I kind of like, yeah. But yeah, I think that pretty much rounds it up. There's really nothing more to say than that. This build works, but it's sort of like every other bow Amazon builds. It also has some drawbacks. The main drawback is probably just the damage. However, if you're looking for like survival and whatnot and something different, this build is actually pretty decent for it. It's just very cool to be able to freeze mobs to death completely and they're never really gonna reach you. That's definitely something you can't say about a lot of builds in Diablo 2, because this game has very little crowd control in it. I'm thinking crowd control, then I think there's only two other skills in the game, that is Shockwave for druids and Bone Wall for necromancers. I don't really know if there's much else crowd control, because yeah, Sorceress has freezing skills, Blizzard and whatnot, but I just don't think that it's as much a freeze as this stuff is. Maybe it is, but I definitely like the crowd control going on this shit here. But yeah, I think I want to round it off with that. And as always, thank you for watching. Feel free to comment if you have any questions at all or want, you know, some new ideas shown on the channel and whatnot. So yeah, thank you for watching and have a good one.